Hey, Nikki.
Hey, how are you?
Hey.
It's so good to see you again.
You too. Thanks so much for joining me today. I just want to make sure we're live. I think we are. Um, so, yeah, thanks again. I know we met, I guess was it last year? Yeah, we met last year, and I just love what you have to share. Um, Actually, the live feed is not working. I don't think. Let's see, is it? Sorry, there's some technical issue here.
All right.
Usually it's very clear and it's so easy. I figured out this process. I've been doing this now for a while.
It
Uh,
says on my end over here, it says live.
yeah, so we're live, but I don't know if it's feeding live. Um, yeah, okay. I think it's working. Sorry. Anyway, so yeah, thanks for being here with me. I was hoping you could lead us through a centering practice, maybe something short just to begin. Is that
I'm
okay?
delighted, absolutely delighted. So, wherever we are, we can find a sense of rooting and grounding, a sense of grounding. And and that means becoming conscious of whatever's touching the earth, whether it's your feet or your thighs or the sit bones or whatever it is. And having that sense of consciousness and connection with Mother Earth beneath us, I know always offers me just a sense of calming and just a sense of connection in with the mother herself. So just take a moment and feel whatever that is. Make that conscious connection. We often call it conscious contact. Make
Mm.
that conscious connection. And if it works for you, let your eyes close. And that doesn't work for everyone. And so that's no big deal. We just use it as a way to interiorize. Our world keeps us external. Everything's about the external world. And so I know the more that I get a chance to be in this internal space and allow the internal space to guide the external space, then there just is a deeper stillness and a deeper sense of connection. So with that, please take a big deep breath in and then exhale and let it out. Let it out. And the invitation is to do that again. Take a big deep breath and exhale and let it out. And then consciously let yourself come to a sense of awareness of breath. And if for just a moment you can let your awareness sit at the tip of the nose and just feel the flow of the breath, the wind as it comes into the body. So outside, it's really wind or air. Once it hits the tip of the nose, there's this special alchemy that happens that turns it into life force. So if you can just become aware of the moment that comes in and you feel the breath at the tip of the nose, and then very gently begin to deepen the breathing, follow the breath, stay with the breath for just a moment, stay with your breath. Feel the inhale as it widens the rib cage, expands the belly. And as you exhale, gently contract the muscles below your navel. And just breathe that way for a moment. And then consciously allow yourself to come into a deeper space inside. Oftentimes we'll speak of this space as housing our values and our psycho-emotional states. And here the invitation always is just to set an intention. What is your intention? And the idea part of yoga is within that question, how can we make our intentions stronger than any dysfunctional patterns? So really sit with intention. And then if it works for you, bring your hands to the heart center and prayer hands, or whatever place on you in your being feels like a sense of resource in this moment. And here we invite you to make conscious contact with some bigger energy. Call it whatever you want. Just that sense of higher reality. And then come into a sense of gratitude. What are you grateful for? Gratitude is such a powerful force for positive change. And then with me, please take another big, deep breath in. As you exhale, gently let your chin fall towards your chest, your head towards your heart. And then with the inhale, if the eyes were closed, simply lift your head and open your eyes.
Wow, thank you. That was awesome.
Welcome.
There's so many good things in there I could talk about.
Yeah, there was a lot in there.
Well, I learned a few things from you because there's some things that I like to share, but I don't know if I would have put them in there. And that was so beautiful. Like that whole interiorizing part, that just really touched me. And also, I love how you just made it like very clear, like go deep. You like just said it, like go. It was almost like permission you were giving to, I can't remember what the word you used, but it was just really like, oh, that was powerful.
Yeah. I tell you my favorite part of that, the one I have to come back to over and over and over again. And really, I got this from one of my teachers a while back. And it's that thing with intention, right? And how can I make my intention? I want to cultivate that so my intentions become stronger than my dysfunctional patterns. Because we all have dysfunctional patterns, right? That's part of the coming in here, right? The vasanas, the samskaras, we all got them, right? And so how can I make my intentions, right, stronger than my dysfunctional patterns? And that's really, really, that's a guiding thing for me.
And it seems like your work, you get to talk about that more openly than a lot of us do. Like that's in a way is that the gift of talking about addiction is like people are struggling, so you can say that. But I feel like we all got that, we all got that same.
Yep, I would say we have to, right? Coming into this whole, binary framework of existence, right? We have to, right? And so part of the whole addiction thing, and I think something that can be generally applied even outside the specific area of addiction is that you can't heal what you don't acknowledge, right? You cannot heal what you do not acknowledge. That became pretty evident for me in the throes of addiction, right? Sooner or later, I, got quote unquote beat down enough, right? And, to my knees enough that I finally had to surrender to a point, that I had to say, I can't do this.
Yeah.
But, I would assert that there are many things that we stay in denial about, right? That we don't, and you can't heal what you do not acknowledge. And if we're really about healing, step one is to tell the truth, that radical honesty. And I don't care what it is. If it's, I always assert that even like the systemic problems we're dealing with are at their root, they're addictions. They're addiction to power. It's addiction to control. It's addiction to all those things. So, sooner or later, I would assert we all got to get here.
Right. I mean, in a way, I think that's been the gift of the pandemic, is just revealing those things more. I mean, I think most of us knew them already, but a lot of people pretended they weren't going on, you know.
You don't have to, right? When I don't have to look through that lens, then it's easier not to, right?
Yeah, like we could pretend everything's okay. You know, if you have a certain amount of privilege, you can act like everything's all right and just ignore the actual suffering that's happening, and also the way you're contributing to that. Yeah. Well, I think I told you that my daughter has mostly drug issues, and she's quite young. She's 14. She's in a residential treatment center right now, and I always love to listen to you because you always help me deal with that. Just, being her parent and understanding her journey, and also mine, connecting to her, because I that's what I got right away again today. It was just like, she does something so openly with her addiction. Like, she's just showing the world, like, she's struggling and she has challenges, and it's like we're all doing that. But I think I've been better at hiding those things, or maybe I'm not using drugs, but God knows what I'm doing: self-talk or self-criticism, other behaviors I probably don't even know about yet consciously, that I'm using to, like, just to survive and deal with the pain of living. So that's what I love about you and your work, is just helping. It helps me a lot personally. So I just want to thank you for that. And my family.
It's a challenging situation, and I say that from a place of lived experience. I too have, not just me, and I love to think about that. I know that at the root of this, some of this had to do with who I was as my children were growing up, and it's coming to grips with all of that, right? And having to watch them through their struggles and through all those things. But here's the good news. Here is the really good news, right? That there's a way through this, and a pathway through this, that as a result of the healing that's possible, I can say today that my children love and adore me, and I love and adore them, and we have a relationship that is stronger and more real and more authentic and deeper than I believe would have ever been possible without having gone through this pathway. And for it the very same thing, right? It seemed to be the chaos and the crisis and the confusion and the storm. On the other side of it, there's beauty and there's depth and there's love and there's hope. And so that transformed into this, and I'm so grateful. So
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. I have faith in that, actually. I feel it happening already, in her treatment, that we're talking about stuff that we could have just ignored, right? It's easy to just pretend everything's okay. And actually, if you ignore it, if you don't make a big mess, then you just keep going, right? You keep going through life like that's not a problem, and you ignore some really important opportunities to learn about yourself, and to deepen those relationships, like you said. So I think that's great. I feel the same way for me about my work, that I've been doing. Well, my work started with people with HIV and AIDS, and I've lost so many friends to AIDS at an early age, and I feel like it was very painful, but it's also an opportunity. Like, I learned so much about myself through that process. But that's the thing about pain, and it's an opportunity for healing. But I don't want to make it seem like what's the word? It's not easy. It's not easy.
No. it's not, right? What's the 12-step program always says it's simple, it's not easy, right? And it is, right? It's simple. It has to do with honesty, right? It has to do with authenticity. But sometimes those things don't at all feel easy because, like yoga talks about, I'm too busy protecting all my images. I'm too busy protecting, who I think I should be, right? And what I think the world should see rather than what's really there.
Yeah. So how do you do it? How do you help people get there?
One day at a time, staying in the present moment, and not the same things, not projecting out in the future and recognizing what I am and coming back to present. Life happens in the present moment. It doesn't happen in the past. It doesn't happen in the future. So, doing my best to keep that phrase they use in 12-step program, keep coming back, right? And what I love to talk about and teach, what that really means is not just keep coming back to a meeting or keep coming back to a book or keep coming back to the present moment. Because I time travel all the time. I go here or last week or here or next week, right? Is keep coming back to the present moment. And so it's this successive, adventure of using tools to keep coming back to the present moment. And sometimes I'm great at it and sometimes I'm not, right? But it's all still keep coming back. Right?
Yeah. That's beautiful. I mean, that's yoga, isn't it? Just keep coming back.
Yeah.
You lose track and you get caught up in your thoughts and then you come back. Yeah. That's what you led us in our centering, actually. That's kind of what you did. Well, there you go. You made it very simple. Okay, well, what about right now? Like, how do you feel during this time? Like, what do you have advice for us? Like, how to, especially people that are struggling with an addiction that consciously, at least they know they have it. They're lucky enough to know they have it. Do you have advice?
It's really, really, really a challenging time for many reasons. At many layers, as I know you already understand. But particularly depending on where we are in this journey of healing around addiction, we don't come in here with great immune systems, right? Given the path that we took, our immune systems are compromised. We don't come in here with the really the greatest health. And so to face a situation like this, right, we're already coming in with compromise. And then there's all the fritties, right? They're all, what's going on at the level of mind, all over the place. So, I've already seen and read from the community that I'm really involved with, the addiction recovery community that I'm really involved with. I've already seen in this city where I am, like 4 or 5 folks that, I was relatively close in community with die as a result of COVID.
Wow.
Right. And so, and that's real. That's real.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. And then there's the relapse because, this is a really crazy time of stress and all of that. And it's easy to go to something like a substance, right? Or a behavior, right? Because for a minute it works, right? It works for a minute. but it's not something that's sustainable, right?
Yeah.
I always love and think about that in the way it's often talked about in Ayurveda. I'm a student of Ayurveda too, and it talks about when you take in a food, there are three pieces of it. The first is the taste, and the second is the virya, right, the potency, and then the third is the post-digestive effect. All right. And so you take a substance and it works for a minute, right? And it may be potent, but the post-digestive effects of that causes a lot of harm, right? And so we're seeing it pop up all over the place. And so it's hard, in where I am, and from what I heard, most places as well, liquor stores were considered essential businesses, right? I heard in California was weed. We don't have legal weed.
Yeah.
And liquor never closed. They were considered essential businesses, and they just skyrocketed over the course of this. And then I was reading recently about online gambling and all, the behavioral things and how they have just skyrocketed over the course of this whole thing. And if are not already, there are bound to be post-digestive effects as a relative to all this. They're bound to be, much less than the other things.
I mean, it's the anxiety is so high for people, I think, that they're looking for something outside to calm down. I feel like, yoga, we're so lucky if you have yoga. I mean, it may not work all the time, but it's something. It's a tool, that we have to help deal with that kind of stuff, to deal with the stress and the worry and the fear that has been just, I think, that we're all facing through this unknown time. It's like it's new for everybody. I mean, kind of. I mean, I have to say, like, I feel like I've been through, with the AIDS epidemic, I kind of went through a pandemic already. A lot of people with disabilities already dealing with living in isolation. That's not always new, but kind of this global trauma definitely is new for us. And I know that, yoga has some tools. Well, it has tons of tools. Okay, there's some comments that I wanted to read to you. Jennifer says, hi, Nikki. I'm in recovery and just completed a 200-hour training with Amber Carnes. Yay. I'm so excited to take your training next. Thank you for being here today. My sponsor feels that Y12SR may be against the fifth tradition of AA. Can you address that here?
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, that's all right. It's really not associated. Y12SR is not associated with any 12-step program, right? So it doesn't really work relative to fifth tradition. Y12SR is what, and Jennifer will understand this if she's in 12-step programs, is what the big book, right, of Alcoholics Anonymous calls outside help, right? It is absolutely, positively outside help. It's not associated with a 12-step, a specific 12-step program or any of those kinds of stuff. We do have our discussions and all that based in the 12 steps. And the reason that we do that is because, that 12-step model, the 12 steps are brilliant, number one, and they're free, right? And so we're interested, and we've written to who we needed to write to ask for permission to work with the 12 steps, and we're granted the permission. Right, and so they're free and they're brilliant for cognitive support and help related to addiction. And the people that I most love and am interested in working with may not have a lot of money or may not have a lot of resource. and may not have a lot of access to things. And this is free, and you get access to it easily. So we've coupled yoga with the 12 steps with permission, a World Service Organization, for that reason. But it can't be against a tradition, because it's not really associated with any specific 12-step program.
Can you tell us a little about the training? Or you have multiple trainings, don't you? You have
Yeah. But the basis of it is that one. The big one is Wattvavasar, right? Which is yoga, but there's a few things under that, right? And there's in two parts. One is called the intensive, the other is called the leadership training program, or you can do them in a form where they're combined, right? Where you do both together. And the intensive is to support people in understanding the connection between yoga and the 12 steps, right? And how these things can work together. We call that one for application and understanding. And then, so that's for anyone who just wants to be in that exploration. And then for the folks who choose to, who might want to go back into their own home communities and have what we call these Wattvavasar meetings, they take the leadership training portion in addition to the intensive. And that equips people to go back into their own home community and start these Wattvavasar meetings and practices, right? It's a discussion group and a yoga practice that's trauma-informed and themed in one of the principles that really, the spiritual principles of the 12-step program look a whole lot like the yamas and niyamas from yoga. So we theme our practices in ways to begin to embody that spiritual principle, because that's what's going to help me when I can really bring this stuff for real in my life. That's what's going to help me make my intention stronger than my dysfunctional patterns, right?
Exactly.
And my behaviors. So, it comes in two parts. The other training that we do that I love, or one of the other trainings that we do that I love, is the training around codependency, right?
Right. Yeah, you're supposed to be coming here to Santa Barbara in the fall and doing that one. I hope you can come.
I hope so too. I hope so. That's one of my favorite ones.
And it's just so ironic that that's the one you ended up offering here in my town for me.
It's always about you. Don't you know that? Right? Yeah. That's the way you first set it up.
But tell me, are you doing them online, like during this time?
Yeah, we've transferred everything on that. I haven't done the codependency one online yet, but I'm working, and that's coming, right? To translate that into, there's some really deep and special practices with that. And so I'm working to how that translate online. But now we're doing all the leadership and combined trainings online, or working on it. I've had to, it's quite an adjustment. I know you know. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's a lot. Well, maybe we could put a link in the in the comments here. I can find it later, or you could share it too, so people could sign up.
Wattvavasar.com, right? Okay. And you go there, and it'll say there'll be a tab for trainings. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. Well, there's lots of comments. Let's see. Hey, Andre. Andre's asking if you could share the best way to offer yoga to his local 12-step community. It's about attraction, not promotion. So hard not to want to share this gift.
Yeah.
Pick your training. That's what I say, Andre.
Yeah. We do talk a lot about that in the training, right? Yeah. Because it is. I love that phrase. It's attraction rather than promotion, and so it's not about the promotion. But there are definitely ways to get it out, and that's a piece of the conversation that we go through in the training, right? A lot of times this is offered in community centers. It's offered in church basements. It's offered in rehabs. It's offered in yoga schools. It's offered in all these different places. And, you know, a lot of times it's been in specific communities. It's working with organizations that support addiction recovery within, you know, those communities. Like here in Indiana, there's the Indiana Addictions Coalition, or you know, some other things. So organizations that work with addiction recovery, that this becomes a way to you know, or offer it within the community of addiction.
Okay. I actually have a question. You know, I've heard you speak about actually about yoga philosophy. That's what really got me, because it's one of my passions too, especially the Yoga Sutras. And I hear you speak about it. You just mentioned the yamas and niyamas. I just wondered if you have something that you've been thinking about recently. Is there some teaching you could share with us? You mentioned the connection between the yamas and niyamas and 12-step. I don't know if you have something in your mind.
Are so many. There's just so many. But I tell you, you know, what I've been deepening lately, the one that I've been really deepening with, you know, as I continue work with coaches, right? 5 bodies, right? So we got these 5 bodies. And, you know, it actually, I showed this picture in the codependency training, right? I had this picture of I have I told you this, a great grandchild. As a matter of fact, I've got 3 and another one on the way. Right?
Wow.
Yeah, just and so you know, I got this picture of Peyton, my great grandbaby, when she was 2 hours old. And I'm holding her and I'm looking in this baby's eyes. And I'm looking at this baby's eyes and I'm going, that's wholeness. I can see wholeness. This is, you know, and she can't tell herself from anything, right? She can't tell herself from anything, right? And so, and then what happens is we get all this shit dumped on top of our wholeness, right? She's 2 years old now. She plus we come in with some stuff. We come in with these 5 bodies, right? And so you get the further away that I get, the further I get away from that intrinsic wholeness, which is who I really am, right? And you get all these samskaras and these vasanas that come in from the world, right? And you know, we create all these and the more that they pile up, the further I get away from that wholeness. Right? And so what I love about that, the Yoga Sutras say, 2 my favorite Yoga Sutras, right, is this 112 or 113, Abhyasa and Vairagya. Right. And Abhyasa is, one of my teachers talks about it as the ardent effort to maintain a peaceful flow of awareness. And isn't that beautiful? Yeah. The effort to maintain a peaceful flow, because we got all this shit coming in from the outside, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. I've heard an effort towards steadiness of mind. It's like the same. It's like, it's more positive that way.
And especially now, right? We got, our mind goes to an outward flow, right? It goes to an outward flow. So maintain, and especially with all the distractions that are coming in now, particularly, right, is heightened even more, right? And so it's the ardent effort to maintain that peaceful flow of awareness. And then Vairagya is reducing the colorings, right? It's detaching, right? It's detaching from all those things. And so the Yoga Sutras say, you know, we keep doing those things, the Abhyasa and the Vairagya. And the Vairagya is subtraction, right? It's like the Advaita Vedanta. I'm not this, I'm not that, right? I'm not this, right? I'm not that, right? Ultimately, as again, one of my teachers says, this is compost, right?
That's awesome.
Don't get too attached, right? Because this is compost. And so what the Yoga Sutras say, those two things, Abhyasa and Bharata. So I'm beginning to deepen that more. And in many ways, that's what the 12 steps are all about. That's why you do those, the depth of what they call a searching and fearless moral inventory. Really, in the 12 steps, like step 6, right, is where you look at your samskars, right? They use the term character defects, which is not always an attractive term, right? But if you think about that, one of my buddies calls it his conditioned maladaptive responses, right? And they're conditioned maladaptive responses, right? And you look at those regularly, right? You look at what are my conditioned responses, right? Even, and if you really get at the depth of it, like we were talking about earlier, I got to look at my conditioned responses to other people, right? I've been conditioned to look at Black people a certain way. I've been conditioned to look at, older people a certain way. I've been conditioned to look, and then I'm in relationship with that conditioning rather than being in relationship with the person that's in front of me. Right?
Oh my God! If we could just do that, I mean, that would save the world right there. That would just.
And that's what Patanjali is saying, right? Patanjali is saying ultimately, we're all addicted to the way we process our reality. We're all addicted to the way we process our reality. So it's stripping that conditioning, right? And that whole thing is to get back down so that the light gets blocked. It can't come through, right? So how do we strip that condition? Because, there's light in every cell of our being. There's it just gets blocked, right?
Yeah, that's the beautiful thing. Oh, sorry, just about the sutras, just that it has that it comes from the positive perspective that we have that already, and then it's just covered up by all the vrittis,
Right.
So it's about undoing all that. It's not like you have to get something new; you just have to clear it away.
There's nothing else to get. It's already all there, and that's the beauty of it. Now, like we said before, it sounds great, right? But it's again simple, not easy, right? It is not easy, right?
No, not easy. Simple but not easy. That's a good one. I know. I'm gonna write that one down. No, I love that. I actually, Vairagya has always been my favorite concept from the Yoga Sutras. It kind of summarizes all the teachings, in that one concept. Just if you can get it, that one idea of non-attachment, that constant seeking something outside that's going to fill you up. It seems so connected to addiction that way. Like just what's going to solve this problem for me out there? And that's the power of yoga, is it's saying, actually, it's inside of you.
That's right. That's right. That's, kind of how we, when I look outside of myself for something that can only come from the inside, then I'm in an addiction, an addictive relationship with whatever that is. Like I say all the time in the codependency work, I've been, in a codependent relationship with Nordstrom's, right? Because I'll run out there and it's that bag, right? Or those shoes, or whatever that is. And it's going to make me whole and complete, right?
Totally. Yeah, there's so many things that I rely on out there.
And there's nothing wrong with those things. There's certainly nothing wrong with a bag or shoes. It's me in relationship to those things.
Yeah. I know. I write about it in my book because my friend Kurt, who died of AIDS, who I talk about in the book, he made a list of his attachments every day as a practice when he knew he was dying. That was his daily practice. He would try and consciously say goodbye, consciously let go, and it was intense. Like I just know for me, it's an endless list. It's so long, and he got it down, to a few things. It was just
letting go.
letting go.
Wow. Yeah.
Letting go. That's really, I think, what spiritual practice is actually, is just letting go of those things that we think are going to make us happy outside of ourselves.
Yeah. That's why you have deeper and deeper levels of surrender, right?
Yeah.
Right? Until you get to that, which has always been there the whole time, right?
I know. And it's funny because like surrender, I think sometimes it feels or sounds like giving up, but it's actually the opposite. You know what I mean? It's like you're not giving up.
Yeah. There was a teacher I was listening to just yesterday who spoke about it in such a beautiful way. Number one, they call it trustful surrender, right? There's this trustful surrender. And then he said something about, you know when it happens because you feel like you're ready to be embraced.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just that. Oftentimes we'll teach in this in Watu Basar is it feels like Shavasana. You know when you've surrendered because it feels like that Shavasana, right? That Shavasana is that Shavasana.
Yeah.
That's surrender.
That's beautiful. That's great. I mean, I love that connection back to the asana too, because I feel like, so much of my frustration is always trying to connect the asana back to these really subtle concepts and important ideas that I want everyone to hold on to as yoga practitioners. And it's good because we can experience them in the asana, but then sometimes you don't realize, oh, that's what's happening. That's what's happening. You're letting go. You're surrendering. Yeah.
That's what we look to do in the Watu Basar piece is make it an embodiment. Because when it's an embodiment, right? At this sensate level, I can know whether my mind will let me bullshit. I'll rationalize and justify and make excuses and do all of those things, And the mind's an incredible tool, right? For what it's incredible for, right? And so, but I'll rationalize and justify. But my body, if I can feel it, right, then that lets I can know truthfully whether I'm in it or out of it.
Then I can know exactly. That's so beautiful. Like I think we've learned that we can't trust what we think, but we can trust the way we feel, and really that there's like the body speaks the truth in those moments, and we need to listen to that. I love that. That's beautiful. And I've been thinking, the part of the sutras I've been thinking about is like how it's not about destroying the mind, but refining it.
That's it.
So that it's a more effective tool.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes in yoga we talk about it like we don't want the mind at all, but really it's just like it's begin to see clearly, like viveka. Where are you attached?
That's right. That's right. That's what Yoga Sutras are really about mastery of mind. It's a mastery of the. I don't know how you walk in the world, like even ego, right? The way we often talk about, I often hear talks about ego, it's like it's something you want to destroy, right? And I'm like, I don't know how you function.
Yeah, no.
Right, in this individuation. I mean, we're individuated, right? I don't know how you could function, right? But again, like everything else, too much, you may have a problem. Too little, you may have a problem. It's that right sized, right?
Exactly. I always say that if the ego is too small, then it's like shyness, or like, that kind of, or self-doubt, self-criticism, putting yourself down. That's not healthy. Yeah, that's what I think. It's like that, having a healthy ego that you're using for service. I would say, like, that you have a purpose. You feel, which could be taking care of yourself. It doesn't have to be out there service. It could just, that's really effectively taking care of yourself, so that you can at least, I would say, at least cause no harm. So at least you can take care of yourself. Oh my God, I love talking to you. Have you written a book about this philosophy?
I've been trying to write a book for a long time. I'm still working on it. There's some things that I really have to really, again, refine relative to it. I always joke because the book already has a name, but I'm probably gonna have to change the name. It's something. I really am. What I've been calling it, but for a specific reason. But I don't want this to in any way be disrespectful. So I always have to acknowledge that. But there's a reason that it's stated this way. I'll probably put this someplace in the subtitle or something like that. But the name of the book is Namaste Motherfucker, right? and I don't want to diss culture or the namaste. But the idea of the book, the reason it says is life presents us with motherfuckers, right? And I'm not talking about a person. Like, from divorce was a motherfucker, right? Yeah. The whole addiction path that I took was a motherfucker, right? Yeah. Death that I've seen in front of me is a motherfucker, right? Yeah. It's like my job as a yogi is to find the namaste, even if what's in front of me is motherfucker, right? That's my job.
It's a good title.
How do I find the namaste? Even I copyrighted that already, right? But I don't know if I'll use it, right? But but that's the idea. My job is to find the namaste. Right. So that gets turned into, once I'm with it, right, then there's a possibility to turn into, there's a gift in the motherfucker. That's the point. Yeah. Right.
You gotta write that book.
Lots of it is already written.
Okay.
Lots of it is already written, right? And so there's a few other things that need to happen. So I pray it won't be long.
Okay. Well, let me know if I can help you.
I will.
I'm working on my second one, and I have some ideas for you. So I don't
know how you do it. I know. Oh my God, time, and it's quite a process, right?
But we need your book. We need your book.
There's a Yoga Sutra, right? It's 133 that talks about 133 locks and keys. Right? Yeah. And it says, there's one that talks about how you reduce jealousy. And every time I hear about somebody, my buddy Sean Korn, and all of y'all got books, and I'm a little bit of jealous, and I got to work on that, right?
It's I'm gonna write to you later. Okay. Anyway, so any other ideas for us? Anything else you want to share?
No,
too much of your time.
I'm grateful you're doing this. Number one, particularly in this space and time. One of the texts from one of the 12-step programs, says we will learn to experience the full range of emotions. And boy, in one day, I can experience a range of emotions that in 2 hours. Yeah. I'm experiencing a range of emotions that I didn't even know that were that many range of emotions. And so, I'm just grateful for tools, and talking to somebody else is a tool, right? And having a community is a tool. And the practices, the breath practices are saving me. I mean, they are really, really saving me. And meditation and asana and all of those things. I'm so grateful, and I'm grieving right? And the whole idea is the container that has the capacity to hold both of those, sorrow and gratitude, right? And I'm having to hold all of that at the same time, and I need every tool in the book for that. So, and the kind of thing that you're doing here is one of those, that we have community, that we really, we really do.
Well, talking to you makes it worthwhile. So thank you.
I love it. I love it. I'm sending you and your family a bunch of love. Give girl my best, and tell her just, if there's anything that I can possibly do to support her, or any questions that she might want to ask someone in the process. I'm so open.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Like I said, I hope you can come here in the fall. I get to see you in person. You're supposed to offer a program here in Santa Barbara. That'll be awesome. So, but I appreciate that. I'll reach out. Thanks so much for being here. And I know you have there's a great comments on there. People love you so much. So you should read it later.
I love it. I will.
All right. Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.